Hello and welcome to Indus News, live from Islamabad. I am Muneeb Hamid with the news of this hour. Let's begin with the top stories first. In Afghanistan, the US says its commanders are on alert for more attacks by IS, including possible rockets targeting Kabul airport. The death toll from earlier twin blasts has reached 110, including 28 Taliban and 13 US troops. President Joe Biden has asked the Pentagon to develop plans to strike the IS after it claimed responsibility for the attack. Meanwhile, evacuations have resumed with new urgency, and the UK says it has entered the last stages of its operations. One of Pakistan's paramilitary soldiers have been martyred in a terrorist attack from across the Afghan border in the lower Dir district. In a statement, the military's media wing said the troops killed one terrorist and injured another 3 in retaliatory fire. Pakistan Chief of Army Staff General Qamar Javed Bajwa says Pakistan is helping achieve peaceful and stable Afghanistan. He made these remarks in a meeting with UK's Chief of Secret Intelligence Service Richard Moore in Rawalpindi. The Army Chief said Pakistan is willing to do anything for an inclusive Afghan settlement, which is vital for regional peace. Brazil has registered 920 daily deaths from COVID-19 and over 31,000 new cases. In Pakistan, the virus claimed 95 lives and infected more than 4,000 people in the past 24 hours. Globally, the death toll has exceeded 4.47 million with over 214 million cases. Well, these were the top stories. News in detail after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now let's have the news in detail. Start from Afghanistan now. The US says its commanders are on alert for more attacks by IS, including possible rockets targeting Kabul airport. The attack at Hamid Karzai airport yesterday worsened the panic in Kabul. The death toll from twin blasts has reached 110, including 28 Taliban and 13 US troops. Claiming the responsibility, IS said one of its suicide bombers targeted translators and collaborators with the American army. US President Joe Biden has asked the Pentagon to develop plans to strike back at the IS. Speaking at the White House, Biden held firm on the 31st August withdrawal deadline, adding that he bears responsibility for everything. Evacuations have resumed now with new urgency, and the UK says it has entered the last stages of its operations. Defence Minister Ben Wallace said the UK will not accept any more people for flights beyond those already inside the airport after it shut its processing centre. Meanwhile, Turkey says it has not made a decision on a Taliban request for support to run the Kabul airport after foreign forces withdraw. In a news conference, President Tayyip Erdogan said there is always a possibility of deaths and security concerns there, but the talks on the matter are still underway. Now, for more on this, we are joined by Sartaj Aziz, former Foreign Minister of Pakistan. Thank you very much for your time, sir. Now, tell us, with such massive attacks now showing the presence and strength of ISIS in Afghanistan, sir, how concerned should Pakistan be considering there could be ISIS operatives coming in as refugees?
There's no question that the latest attack at the Kabul airport have further complicated a very grave and messy situation in Afghanistan. And obviously, the ISIS Khorasan is a matter of concern for Pakistan because many of the TTP disgruntled elements in Afghanistan joined ISK Khorasan, and therefore that door is still open and Pakistan should be worried about it. But whether they will come as refugees, the chances are now slightly better for us to control because we have erected a wall and that open entry that was in the 90s is not there. FATA has been integrated with the Pakhtunkhwa province, which now courts and administrative structure and police stations are being extended right up to the Afghan border. And I think government has also sort of shown a clear line that we will not allow open refugees, but if some humanitarian do come in, they'll be kept close to the border, preferably within Afghanistan, but our side of the border, and closely monitored so that they do not mix with the population. So these are some of the safeguards. But the fact that IS is active in Afghanistan is a matter, and Pakistan will have to very carefully monitor the border and the situation.
Right, so also the Taliban have held a strong position over an Islamic system in Afghanistan, and that too an emirate. With that already taken care of, what could be the possible motive behind these attacks, and who benefits the most from these disruptions?
Well, I think the Taliban and IS on Islam and spreading Islam throughout the world are very different. Taliban want to establish their own government within Afghanistan. They have no ambition to go outside Afghan borders, whereas IS is a global terrorist network which wants to spread Islam by force throughout the country. So I think to that extent, one can see why this is happening. But the more important question is who benefits most from this disruption. Now, obviously, there are very many others who are not happy at the Taliban takeover. Many of the previous government operatives and forces. So who knows who was behind these attacks also. IS is always very anxious to take credit for whatever happened. But in due course, we'll find out who is behind. But I think this is a very sad situation because Afghanistan has suffered a lot. It needs a stable government. Taliban have given the right signals to have an inclusive government and amnesty to everyone. So these disruptions are very unfortunate.
Right, so also NATO has categorically stated that this incident won't lead to an extension of the withdrawal deadline. Now, President Joe Biden pledged to avenge the death of 13 American soldiers last night. Could this lead to an increase in Washington's pressure on Pakistan to partner or facilitate its over-the-horizon military operations?
Not likely, because Pakistan has given a very clear indication that we are not going to join any kinetic operation in Afghanistan. And in any case, what we are looking for is stability in Afghanistan, and any such attacks will create instability and create more chaos. So I think even America has to think very carefully the kind of over-the-horizon military operation that they want to launch will not be easy for them, except unless they have very clear targets and very short-term operations. But as far as Pakistan is concerned, it has very clearly shown that we are not going to join any other wars. We need peace and stability in Afghanistan, and therefore Pakistan is working to evolve a regional approach with other neighboring countries like China, Russia, and Central Asian countries to respond to this present situation and promote stability and peace in Afghanistan.
Right. So lastly, the Taliban have not yet organized any proper government with the new month approaching. Salaries being due, banks still not operational completely, and with the international institutions and the US halting their financial support, could Afghanistan face a humanitarian crisis in the near future?
Well, it's already facing the kind of crisis because the prices are going up, and obviously it is very unfair on the part of Western countries to freeze Afghan assets. They belong to the people of Afghanistan and not to any government, whichever government it is, should have access. And the people of Afghanistan, having suffered so much in the past, need humanitarian assistance, food and other medicines and so many other necessities. So I think this is an unfortunate situation that instead of helping the people of Afghanistan, they have frozen their assets. Obviously, conditions of human rights and human rights, etc., are valid, but there's plenty of time to enforce them, and many are buyers. But I think they should have access to their assets and their funds, including the IFI, because and I think the sooner these are resumed, In the meanwhile, I think Pakistan, China, Russia would provide some minimum assistance, particularly food assistance, so that there is no major food shortages in the country. And Pakistan will also hopefully promote and allow trade, very easy access, so that there is no shortage of goods. So in the meanwhile, I think people of Afghanistan are suffering, and let's hope that more countries and institutions will come to their help.
Well, let's hope the best for Afghanistan, and may peace find its way to Afghanistan now. Sartaj Aziz, former foreign minister, thank you very much for talking to Indus News. All right, now for more on this, we have the Salman Malik, a professor of strategic studies from Islamabad. Thank you very much for your time now. Salman, over 100 have been killed in the twin bombings at Kabul airport last night, with the United States and the Taliban saying they have intel about more of such attacks. How will this impact the evacuation process?
On the humanitarian front, it is going to be very disastrous, and it's going to spread more panic amongst people. People are already very apprehensive. They were already very much panicked. And these were one of the few things that everyone was thinking of. They knew that this might happen, but they were not wishing it to happen. And this is actually a nightmare scenario, because at this moment, places such as the Kabul airport or the border areas are a point of convergence for people in any attack that takes place, where it is going to affect the security personnel, because there are also reports that American as well as Afghan soldiers and Taliban soldiers have been killed. The major number of casualties or fatalities in such attacks would be ordinary citizens of Afghanistan, and they're going to pay a big price for that, and that is going to be a very catastrophic humanitarian crisis. And as I said, that not only is it going to spread panic amongst people, in fact, it's going to spread a lot of distrust. The Taliban are going to blame the Americans or the Western powers. The Western powers are going to blame the Taliban, and the other Afghan factions who are anti-Taliban, they are going to blame both the sides, and everyone is going to gain mileage out of it by saying that we knew it, we told you so, we had credible intelligence, and no one really followed it through. So instead of getting together and being cohesive about it, because this is a time where everyone is trying to make their mark, there's going to be a lot more anarchy as a result of such situations.
And we hope that is not the case. Now, Salman, ISIS Khorasan has accepted the responsibility for last night's suicide blast now. What do you believe is the motive behind such actions?
Well, one, of course, major motive for such organizations is, and especially for ISIS Khorasan, the issue is that this is kind of a calling card, that we are very much here, so don't ignore us. And one aspect that ISIS Khorasan had when the Doha agreement was signed between the Taliban and the American administration was that the Taliban are going to rein in the ISIS Khorasan, and they're going to be the firewall against the ISS against the Western powers. And the situation in Afghanistan is so fluid at the moment that you can't really make very credible, intelligent guesses. But the very fact is that this gives more credibility to the American who would say that we told you so, they are not good enough, and they're going to create a lot of chaos and tensions in the area. And vice versa, the situation is going to be worse again for the Afghan society as well as administration, whosoever is going to run the show. And at this moment, it's a total chaos. And for fringe elements such as ISIS Khorasan, I'm calling it a fringe element because it is not the major stakeholder at the moment in the Afghan scenario. Such incidents, or putting your calling card to such incidents, provides it a lot of credibility and the fear factor that such organizations thrive upon. So whether they did it or they did not do it, and they are claiming that they have done it, provides them with that fearsomeness that they really want, and they're going to hog more light as a result of this.
Right, Salman, let's talk about US President now. Joe Biden said that the US had accomplished its mission in Afghanistan, which was to eliminate the possibility of an ISIS attack on US forces or their interest.
Do you believe the American president's statement is faulted?
Well, you see, look at the sequence of statements that have come from the U.S. and how this situation occurred. Just 24 hours ahead of this particular tragic incident, the American president had also said that, or the American administration had asked for more time for complete withdrawal of its troops. And plus, the Taliban and the others had also said that there are threats that there's going to be such an attack. And then it happened. So is it a pure coincidence that all of these things happened, or there is some sequence to it? Would that require that, the Americans need to come back, the contractors need to come back in a greater number as part of a CIA payroll to secure American interest in Afghanistan? Does that also mean that, God forbid, several such more incidents with a high number of casualty count of Afghans, definitely no one else, unfortunately, would that mean that the American powers, they would return? And Joe Biden's statements for the moment are very unfortunate. I mean, if we would laugh at Trump for giving irresponsible statements, President Joe Biden is also giving statements without realizing that all the goodwill, if there was any, that the Americans earned in their 20 years fiasco in Afghanistan is totally going down the drain. And these are not the statements to pass at this moment. I mean, if they said that their mission was to control ISIS, I think that mission has really not worked. The ISIS is very much around. And if yesterday's event happened, was done by the ISIS, so the ISIS has actually told them that we are very much around and we have taken a good number of your soldiers out. So don't consider us to be out of this picture and your mission successfully accomplished. So unfortunately, there was no mission, whatever mission statements that the US had said in the last 20 years to date, that have been successful in Afghanistan.
Right. I mean, Salma, we want to see peace in Afghanistan, but if we witness a surge in such attacks, are we looking at another era of a destabilized and vulnerable Afghanistan?
Absolutely. This is a very, very unfortunate thing, because sitting here in the comfort of our homes and talking to each other, we cannot even think of what an average Afghan national at this moment is going through. Whatever social class, social background, economic background they come from, there's a complete state of panic in Afghanistan as to what would happen. And you see, after 15th of August, the Taliban had tried to make it a big thing by telling people not to panic. They are not going to do many of the things that they had done in the past. They had tried to broker a lot of confidence in the Afghan society, and that is something the West was not comfortable with. They were thinking that utter chaos is going to erupt, and if they really wanted to have a stable Afghanistan, the one thing that they would have done was to stabilize the Afghan National Security Forces, which they completely left chaotic and lacking, and they had zero capability. So when the Taliban came into Kabul or any of those areas, they found zero resistance. Yet the fact was that the Taliban, since 15th August, were trying to convince people, they were trying to give confidence to the people that there's going to be no civil unrest in the society. And such events are going to prove totally contrary, and that is going to lead to civil unrest, because there are a lot of people in Afghanistan, the stakeholders, who want to have some kind of a civil strife because it suits them. And if that happens, the Taliban have firepower, the Taliban have control over Kabul, and that is going to open a very, very unfortunate, dangerous and violent new chapter for the Afghans, which is going to be extremely dangerous and difficult, and it's going to have very severe repercussions on Pakistan, because being the next door neighbor, Pakistan is going to have a spillover of Afghan crisis, and that also means means not only humanitarian crisis in the form of Afghan nationals coming to Pakistan, but also violent conflict spilling over the borders. So this is going to be very, very upsetting for the entire region, but mostly for Pakistan and, of course, for Afghanistan.
Well, Salma, we hope and pray that peace finds its place in Afghanistan and in the entire region now. Salman Malik, Professor of Strategic Studies from Islamabad, thank you very much for joining us on Indus News. Thank you very much. Now, moving on, Pakistan's one paramilitary soldier has been martyred in a terrorist attack from across the Afghan border. The army said the terrorists opened fire on a military post in Lower Dir district. In a statement, the military's media wing said the army responded in a befitting manner. The ISPR said the troops killed one terrorist and injured another 3 in retaliatory fire. It said the 36-year-old martyred Havaldar Gul Amir was a resident of Lucky Marvat. Early on August 8, another soldier was injured in a cross-border attack from Afghanistan in North Waziristan. Now, Pakistan's Chief of Army Staff, General Qamar Javed Bajwa, says Pakistan is helping achieve peaceful and stable Afghanistan. United Kingdom's Chief of Secret Intelligence Service, Richard Moore, called on General Bajwa in Rawalpindi. The military's media wing said the two sides discussed regional security following the US withdrawal from Afghanistan. The army chief said Pakistan is willing to do anything for an inclusive Afghan settlement, which is vital for regional peace. The visiting dignitary expressed his appreciation for Pakistan's untiring efforts towards regional peace and stability. Now, Pakistan's foreign minister says continued consultations by Afghanistan's neighbours over the country's future are the way forward. Shah Mahmood Qureshi was speaking to Iran's President Ibrahim Raisi in Tehran as part of his regional tour. Qureshi said a coordinated approach is important for security, stability and inclusive political settlements in Afghanistan. The foreign minister thanked the president for Iran's consistent support on the Kashmir issue. He also affirmed Pakistan's desire to work with Iran in all areas to further strengthen relations. The foreign minister visited Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan and Iran to promote a coordinated regional approach on Afghanistan. Now, for more on this, we have with us Manahil Ahmed, our correspondent in Islamabad. Now, Manahil, what was the core agenda of this visit?
The core agenda of Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi's visit to Central Asia and Iran was to bring focus on the issue that is happening in Afghanistan. Before embarking on this journey, the Foreign Minister, the Foreign Office and our Prime Minister did speak to a lot of other countries, including Russia, Turkey, the European Council and the United States, in which Pakistan's role for safe evacuation of Afghans and foreigners stranded in Kabul was highly appreciated. Other than that, Prime Minister Imran Khan and Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi has been in contact with world leaders all across the country, all across the world, where they are highlighting that how a political inclusive government in Afghanistan is extremely vital for peace in the entire region. That was one of the reasons why Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi did embark on this 3-day visit in which he visited Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan and Iran. He met with foreign ministers, he met with senior leaders in these countries, and he did share Pakistan's perspective regarding Afghanistan and the developments that are happening in Afghanistan. He did highlight the role of neighboring countries to maintain peace in Afghanistan, which is vital for the entire region. Shah Mahmood Qureshi, there was an Afghan delegation that was also in Islamabad a couple of weeks ago, in which Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi did have an extremely exclusive and extremely inclusive dialogue with them, in which they were motivated and they were advised to go for an inclusive government. So I think it was the same message that Qureshi took with him when he met with all of these leaders, that an inclusive government in Afghanistan is extremely vital for peace in the entire region. He said that how the role of neighbors is extremely important to maintain that peace and stability remains in Afghanistan ever since the Taliban took over, and that all efforts should be made to improve economic, regional connectivity and people-to-people linkages.
Right. Also, Manahil, tell us, what do we know about the outcome of Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi's engagements with the Iranian leadership?
Yes. So Shah Mahmood Qureshi did arrive in Tehran yesterday, which was the 26th of August, where he met with his Iranian counterpart and the president of Iran. He was accompanied by the special representative of Afghanistan, Ambassador Mohammad Sadiq. It was an extremely significant meeting between the two foreign ministers, as it was the Iranian foreign minister's first meeting being held with a foreign counterpart of his, as it was his first day as the foreign minister in Iran. So that was of extremely high importance. During the meeting, foreign minister did congratulate the president of Iran on being elected. He also extended an invitation to him to visit Pakistan, which was accepted by him. Shah Mahmood Qureshi also communicated Pakistan's concerns regarding what is happening in Afghanistan and how it is extremely important, to push Afghanistan for an inclusive government chosen by the people of Afghan, led by the people of Afghanistan. And he highlighted how it's extremely important, especially for the neighboring countries, mainly Iran, Pakistan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and all of the to improve regional connectivity, to improve people-to-people linkages, to maintain peace and stability in the region. He also highlighted how peace and stability in Afghanistan will benefit the entire region. Other than that, Shah Mahmood Qureshi also briefed a little and followed up on their previous meeting, on the previous visit when he went to Iran, in which they signed a memorandum of understanding, in which they established 6 marketplaces alongside the border of Iran and Pakistan to improve trade and livelihood among the people. So there was also a follow-up on that. And other than that, there were details discussed of what's happening in Afghanistan as new developments are taking place and what is the way forward.
Right. Thank you, Manahil, for the updates. Thank you very much. Now, moving on, Pakistan's Information Minister Chaudhry Fawad Hussain says the world must not abandon Afghans or there will be chaos. In a tweet, the minister said the vacuum in Afghanistan is dangerous. Hussain added that Pakistan is playing a responsible role in the given situation. But he said the major powers should play a vibrant role for Afghanistan's stability. Now, Russia says the talks on the Iranian nuclear deal in Vienna should restart as soon as possible. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov made these remarks to his Iranian counterpart, Hussein. Russian Foreign Ministry says the Iranian side received this signal with due seriousness. Earlier, Lavrov also discussed the nuclear deal with the Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency. The UN watchdog has said Iran has accelerated its enrichment of uranium to near weapons grade. The Vienna talks, which began in April, have been on hold amid the transition of a new administration in Tehran under President Ibrahim Raisi. Now, the Arab coalition says Saudi air defenses intercepted an explosive-laden drone launched by Yemen's Houthi rebels. In a statement, the coalition said the UAV was aimed at Saudi city of Khamis Mushet. Meanwhile, the coalition reportedly launched extensive airstrikes on Houthi positions in Yemen's central province of Marib. Houthi seized control of much of Yemen's north in 2014 and forced President Abdul Rabbu Mansur Hadi out. The Saudi-led coalition intervened in the coalition in March 2015 to support Hadi's government. More news coming up after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now, Brazil has registered 920 daily deaths from COVID-19 and over 31,000 new cases. Globally, the death toll has exceeded 4.47 million, with over 214 million cases so far. Details about the pandemic in this report.
Protests against COVID vaccine and mask mandates continue across the world, while the numbers of deaths and infections show no sign of relief. India has reported nearly 500 more deaths and over 44,000 cases over the last 24 hours. The World Health Organization is expected to ship 100 million doses of Chinese vaccine, mostly to Africa and Asia, by the end of next month. In the US, virus-related hospitalizations has reached the highest level since January as the Delta-driven infections continue to surge. Meanwhile, thousands of students in the states of Florida and Texas have returned to classes amid the mask mandate controversy.
The mask mandate, well, it kind of makes the school safe. I didn't really like the virtual school, even though I had to go through it. So even though we're with the mask, it kind of gives it keeps us safer in school, and we're able to actually go physical learning, which I think it's a better form of learning. So if I have to wear a mask to learn, then I'll wear a mask.
Over in Europe, French health minister says the fourth wave of COVID-19 is receding in the country, but it's not over yet. Meanwhile, the European Union has warned against higher legal risks of boosters without the approval of the European Medicines Agency. In Greece, health workers protested against new rules obliging medical staff to get vaccinated. They observed a 4-hour work stoppage.
I am here today because I want to support the constitutional right of every Greek citizen to say yes or no to vaccination. I personally am vaccinated, but I believe it is my colleagues' right to not get vaccinated if they don't want to.
Slovenia has made weekly COVID-19 tests mandatory for students and teachers who have not been inoculated or recovered from the disease.
Meanwhile, in Pakistan, the coronavirus has claimed 95 more lives over the past 24 hours. The Health Ministry says the death tally has reached 25,415. It said 4,000 people contracted the virus overnight and the positivity rate declined to 6.42%. The ministry said the caseload has exceeded 1,144,000, while more than 1 million people have recovered. It said there are nearly 93,000 active cases, of which more than 5,500 are critical. So far, nearly 60 million vaccine doses have been administered in Pakistan. Now moving to Nigeria, where militants have released dozens of students abducted 3 months ago in north-central Niger State. Officials say the freed students were on their way to the state capital, Minna. Gunmen had kidnapped around 136 pupils along with several teachers from a seminary in Tegina. School's head teacher says 6 of the pupils died in captivity and a further 15 escaped in June. The official said all pupils have been released, but he cannot give the exact number at the moment. According to estimates, more than 1,000 students have been forcibly taken from their schools during several attacks. Now in Peru, political tensions have erupted amid a vote of confidence on the new cabinet of President Pedro Castillo. Congress has pushed the key vote of confirmation to Friday. This has extended uncertainty in the country where conflicts between the executive and legislature loom large. Earlier, Prime Minister Guaido Bellido asked Congress for a yes vote outlining plans to lift Peru out of the crisis. Since leftist Castillo took victory in the presidential runoff, far-right groups have taken to the streets calling for his annulment. They claim thousands of his votes were fraudulent. Meanwhile, in Spain, the Coast Guards have rescued around 50 migrants off the Canary Islands. The survivors, who were found in very poor conditions, have been transported to the port of Anguiniguin. One migrant was taken to a local hospital in a helicopter in serious condition. Emergency staff attended to dozens of exhausted survivors who were lying on the ground. The dinghy, which was intercepted 6 miles south of the island of Gran Canaria, was also carrying babies. So far this year, nearly 8,300 migrants have made the dangerous crossings from the West African coast to the Canaries archipelago. Now, a group of 8 Ukrainian strongman athletes have set a national record by pulling the world's largest and heaviest cargo plane. They pulled the Mriya Antonov 225 in 2 groups of 4. The athletes managed to move the plane 4.3 meters within 1 minute, 13 seconds. The feat set a national record for the fewest number of people pulling the plane. 10 men had set the previous record of pulling the plane in 2013. Representative of Ukraine's national record book said they will apply for the Guinness World Record.
European markets are muted as caution prevailed ahead of US Federal Reserve's annual Jackson Hole Symposium. FTSE MIB in Italy gained close to 0.25%, while London's FTSE and the Pan-European Stock 600 advanced marginally. Frankfurt's DAX and CAC 40 in Paris both shed fractionally. Now let's have a look at how the weather is doing around the world. Well, that is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News.